Hey everyone. So sometimes I forget when I am going live, like the order of everything that I do, and I certainly don't have a checklist. But so it's like, oh, here we go, trying this. But Marnie, how cold is it with you? Are you right now?
Ooh, good question. It is 14. Not
14.
too
Okay.
bad. It's sunny.
I think we have 10 right
10.
now.
Yeah. That's just moved to Iowa from Texas a few months ago, and I've been keeping an eye on my North Texas friends, and they're back up above freezing, but they've been having a heck of a time with the ice and the cold.
Yeah. No, I mean, no kidding. I mean, we usually in Wisconsin, January is normally the time when we have Arctic blasts. And I almost thought that we were going to be able to bypass it with the 40 to 50 degree weather that we had at the beginning of January, because usually that's when the Arctic blasts happen. But no. Oh, we had to keep it. So
might be a long winter.
Well, winter officially ends on February 28th, when it goes from February 28th to March. Like beginning of March is like when my winter officially ends. So hopefully that's when it does.
Okay, manifesting.
Yep, there we go. Okay, everyone, if you are joining us, this is Progressive HR, and our live today is Brand Partnerships in HR and Tech and What's Coming Next. I'm joined by my co-founder in the PHR Brand Partnerships Network, Marnie Robbins, and we're going to talk all about brand partnerships and HR and Tech today. So please go ahead and introduce yourself in the comments. Let us know where you're streaming from, why you're here, what is it that you want to learn about tech, HR, and tech partnerships. And if you are where you are in the world, and how you're feeling about winter, like when is your official end of winter and beginning of spring? Love to hear from you. So while we are waiting for you all to let us know who you are, where you're streaming from, let's kind of go with an audience icebreaker. Well, actually, we just did that. But Marty, do you have any questions for the audience before we start?
I think for a lot of people is kind of understanding, what HR brand partnerships are. And so I think for me, it would be if you could describe maybe in a couple words, 2 to 3 words of what you think when you think of HR brand partnership. So it could be a feeling, a thought, a statement, whatever comes to mind. I would love to know that. And I just got to say, hi, Jan. It's nice to see you.
G's from Texas, right? So blowing up our comments here. But mentioning that, so I wanted to mention to our audience that this live, it's all informal and it's all, ask questions, comment on what we're saying. We turn to you, the audience. You're part of this live, all in the flow of what we're talking about. So if you do have a question about something that we're saying, please go ahead, ask us that question in the comments. And when we pause, we'll go ahead and answer that question. So let's go ahead and start, but we're going to start with introducing yourselves. So we've got let's see here. G is joining us all the way from North Dallas in Texas. And says, I'm so excited to be here. Just ventured out in my car for the first time today since last Friday to go to my corner Kroger. So alone, that put me in bright spirits. Excellent. I know. I think I've maybe had 5 minutes in the last week of time outside. So, and then G said is exactly that. I'm intrigued by HR brand partnerships and would love to learn more. And then Matthew's joining us from South Florida. I don't know, Matthew, is it as cold there as it is here? Did you get any of the bad storm that was across the US? Excited to hear more about how HR is approaching the partnership search. Excellent. And for those who do not know, we have something called the Brand Partnership Network, or the PHR Brand Partnership Network, where we are partnering our community and our HR leadership network with the HR tech brands that we really like and we think are doing interesting things. And Matthew from Workstory is part of that network. So shout out to Matthew. And then Monica says, hi from Dallas. Hi, Monica. Thanks for joining us. And Mindy says, hello from Allentown, Pennsylvania. Glad to be here. Well, we are so glad to have all of you here with us. With that, I am going to start asking Marnie a few questions, and we'll just kind of flow into a conversation. So Marnie, from your seat, what's actually broken in HR and tech partnerships today?
Well, maybe not broken yet, but it could be broken. It could be way better. So I think we all know, being in the HR industry, that the world of work is changing. The we call it the recomposition of work. You have these advancements in technology and AI and the way that we do work and business. And so what we're seeing is partnerships in HR technology and AI are becoming one of the biggest and most important relationships going into the future of work. And so when you think of HR, AI tech, all of that, we're really at the intersection of people, of systems, of judgment, right? So we have the technology, the people, the judgment, and the system. So all of that to be said, it's really an important topic, and I think we're just now starting to scratch the surface of what that relationship and those partnerships look like. I think we had in the show notes that it was like, over the next decade, HR tech is going to double from like 40 billion to 75 or 80 billion, something like that. And that doesn't even include AI, which is going to be like hundreds of billions. So we would be remiss not to change the way that we approach it. So is the question that, do partnerships matter? Yeah. Have we been focusing on them the right way? Kind of, but it needs to go beyond that of what kind of relationships. So what's broken? Today, our brand partnerships really look a little more shallow in nature. You have a lot of one-off engagements. So we have HR creators, and by the way, I'll refer to anyone who's, if you're an HR practitioner, an HR influencer, thought leader, consultant, you name it, you're a creator. If you're putting work out there, that's what you are. So when I refer to creators, that means you. But there's a lot of one-off type conversation. So the way I look at it is like first dates. You're going on a lot of first dates and then expecting marriage results. So it's, hey, can you jump on a webinar for me? The vendor will say. And so you jump on the webinar, and then that's about it. You get exposure that's promoted. They promote a lot of exposure. I think we all need to go to exposure therapy at this point, because we've all been kind of seduced by that, getting exposure from these HR tech brands. But really what happens is that doesn't really move the needle for either us personally or professionally, or for the HR tech vendor for that matter. So you have these kind of misaligned incentives, right? You have HR tech vendors and AI that they want to increase their audience footprint. They want to increase their leads in their conversations, and maybe more in-depth education opportunities for their groups. But then you have HR creators who are really focused on, well, how do I build my own personal brand, and how do I create credibility in relationships that matter? So what's been happening is, because of these one-off short-term shallow engagements, you get thin thought leadership. And that's not good for either the HR tech vendors or the creators or the buyers, for that matter. They're not getting substance from these partnerships. So, that's really where the HR partnerships industry, in my viewpoint, and I'll have you add, because we're partners here, like add what you think too, is really taking that next step. There's a lot of industries that do partnerships really well. Think of wellness, Peloton instructors, fintech's been really good about getting out there and having influencers and creators out there really propel that industry. So that's where we just really need to get a little more sophisticated in the way that we're approaching those partnerships in HR.
Yeah, no, so I would add something, but I think that you pretty much said it all from my standpoint. I love what you said when you were saying that, most partnerships are first dates, and that somehow, expects that lead to marriage results, and how we're looking at, we're not even look at, I agree with you. We're not only looking at like the AI slop, because we're hearing a lot of the AI slop. Oh, there's too much AI slop. There's too much to consume. Thin thought leadership. I mean, you nailed it on the head. I mean, that's the intent is for reciprocity. The intent is to give both partners exposure, but it does lead to thin thought leadership in the majority of the cases. I mean, there's some people that do it really, really great. But our industry is not the beauty industry. It's not the wellness industry. But we're still trying to take a page from their playbook, but it doesn't, it doesn't work here. So we need to change, and we need to grow that infrastructure. Is anybody out there? I saw that Mike Fleck, who said that they love, what did the comment come through? Exposure therapy. Actually, yeah, I know. And to your point, what does that mean? So, because that's just, again, that's just a buzzword. I will give you exposure. Well, what does that mean? And it usually comes across as, we have 100K emails in our newsletter, and we'll send out a newsletter and giving you exposure. Well, that 100K doesn't mean that you're going to get 100K clicks, and it certainly doesn't mean that they're your ICP if you're working towards, getting more customers in your pipeline, and it certainly doesn't mean that exposure is going to translate into more opportunities for you. We're better off asking for maybe less exposure, but more access to opportunities, which is, of course, what we're trying to do. So, audience, do you have any questions for Marnie or I in regards to what could possibly be broken or needs to be redefined or recomposition with regards to HR and tech partnerships? And I'll move on to my next question. So, we talked a little bit about this just now, but what shifts are you seeing that people should actually pay attention to?
So I think you had said something around, we're not the wellness industry or the fintech industry, and that's very true. And there is an inherent difference, is because, well, frankly, if we're in human resources or people and culture, you name it, we're usually in it because we have a sense of stewardship for people. And so there's this innate, at the center of it all is that human and that people relationship. So fast forward to shifts that we're seeing in the industry is trust as a currency. I think that's the way that I've really been, as we're observing kind of what works really well within partnerships, is that trust as a currency. And what I mean by that is HR creators, the creators out there, they value credibility and putting people at the center of their decision making and what they put out there. And the vendors have to have partners that they can trust to actually not just join as a partner, but actually do something that moves the needle for them as well. So that trust as a currency is really important, and that's at the onset of the relationship. So for an HR creator, what does that look like? Well, that really looks like fewer vendors that maybe we're deeper involved with, that are more aligned with what we do as an HR creator. So in my mind, I'm shifting to, okay, this is what I'm a subject matter expert in. This is what I can really bring to a technology or to an AI, brand. And maybe I'm even approaching them directly to say, I really value you as an HR brand or HR technology. I'd like to get involved. So we see kind of that shift of really being values aligned there. What we hear a lot from our creators in the network is the, I don't want to sell. Like that's not necessarily what partnerships are for. Partnerships are not about selling, but it's more about, how do I stand behind the brands that I really can connect with and can promote. So a lot of times we say, if you can't actually recommend a technology out there for free without getting anything, then it's probably not the right partnership for you. So I see that shift in really kind of aligning on that standpoint. And then involvement. So a lot of times that partner vendor relationship, there's a lot more involvement, that deeper engagement. It's multi-touch campaigns, different types of creation. Partners are, the HR tech partners are gathering input from their partners earlier on before they even create the new feature and the new next thing that they're doing. They're bringing in the creators to help form that narrative and form that problem statement. And so we see, true brand partnerships from the HR tech vendor side really becoming less of a, here's an affiliate link where you can go and you can but let us have access to your clients or to your audience, and then you get an X%. Yeah, that's great. But what we're seeing is a more involved kind of ecosystem where they're activating their partnerships and long-term, more reciprocal. So less one-offs, more infrastructure, less campaigns, more ecosystem.
Yeah, I 100% agree with that. And going back to taking the page out of the beauty or wellness playbook, we think about the down to business, brass tacks, the deals that come through in technology, the deals that come through in like wellness or beauty, they're consumer brands. And we're talking about, someone spending $10 to $20 maybe on a lip gloss or a cleansing foam, which is considered like the entry into a market for
yes.
And we're comparing that to, quarter of $1,000,000.
Yep.
And
yep.
it's very different. The credit, what is it? The risk is greater.
Yep. Absolutely. A lot of times our jobs are on the line. Or our relationship with our clients, or our professional brand, especially on the B2B side.
And then, oops, that didn't show. She says, love that perspective. How can I stand behind the brands and say that this is a non-sales gal? Yeah, exactly. And I think Mohammed said, excited to see how HR tech partnerships evolving, tuning in while working on Selectra HR with Zero Lifestyle. Well, that's interesting. I'll have to look that up as we after the live. Where I was going to go with what G had said is that you can stand behind a brand without actually using the technology, in my opinion, because you can like what the brand is doing, you can like what the brand stands for. You can, it's not just seeing a demo, because I don't think seeing a demo and asking to play in the sandbox is a good reflection. But when you do your research, you like what they're doing, you like the people that they're doing it with. The founder is great. The founder creates content, they're a creator too. I think you can stand behind a brand and have advocacy for the brand, or non-advocacy, how you have decided, without actually being a user of this technology. Yeah. So that's my opinion.
No, and I want to dig into that a little bit too, because you bring up a really good point, Corrine. And G knows above all of that professional branding. She's an expert, in that. And so I think it really is hard, particularly for the consultants and whatnot, that maybe I don't have like this roster of clients that I can actually like put this technology in. So how do I align with these brands? And for me, one of my favorite partnerships is, I don't use them, but the thought leadership that they come out with and that founder relationship. So for me, I'm in the startup world. And so I like following the founders to say, what message are they putting out there? Do I align with that message? I buy their books, and then I reach out and say, yes, I can get behind their message. The technology, yes, we'll make sure that it's sound. We do the due diligence on that front, but really it comes down to that story.
I want to ask it, and I agree with you 100%, Marnie. I'm going to bring up a question here from Mike. Ooh, why are you not working so well today? StreamYard. I love StreamYard, by the way. How much of a challenge is related to how the vendors work, or want to work or know how to work with partners? And that's a very good question. Go ahead, Marty. Actually, Mike adds something here, particularly creator partners, let's say, because there's a whole slew of different partnerships. Like, as we're getting.
Thanks for clarifying that. Mike, because I think we've seen a lot of vendors that HR tech vendors that will approach creators and ask for that one-off type piece of content. So I'll give an example first one, and this is a personal story, but I remember as a creator, I put a lot of content out there, or I did until the launch, and I feel like I'm more worried about other people's content. But yeah, I had a tech company reach out. I liked their brand. We aligned, and they said, "Hey, do you want to create a piece of long form content for us?" It's like, that's great. And it was, again, exposure, right? You're going to have exposure on our website, but that was really, the reciprocity was a bit shallow in that respect. So what we see a lot of these, when it came down to it, I wrote the long form content, they published it, and they didn't share it on LinkedIn. And that's my primary engine, is understanding, what channels is like. For LinkedIn, you didn't share it on LinkedIn. So, and then when I pressed the head of marketing at the organization, they said, well, no, we just, SEOs our main approach. And so that's what we rely on. So if someone goes to Google and they specifically look up your name or the topic, then they'll find you. But that's not helpful from an HR creator standpoint. So what we're seeing in what I like about that story is that's just kind of the evolution of the sophistication of how these HR tech vendors should be approaching these HR creators. Because now the conversations that we're having with a lot of HR tech vendors that are interested in the network or getting involved is like, hey, we know partnerships is important, but we're not quite sure how to go about doing that, finding the right aligned people, but then also going beyond that first touch point. Like, let's actually have a relationship. Maybe I don't have the budget to be paying creators a ton of cash. So what does reciprocity mean on our front? How can we support those creators? And I think opening up that dialogue is really important.
Yeah, no, I agree. And when we talk about reciprocity, going back to the exposure, like, what does that mean? Like, reciprocity is different for different people. And so if you are an aspiring creator, let's have some definitions here too. A creator, in my opinion, is anyone who produces any type of content. So that does not include people who repost. I mean, I see that there's a value in reposting. I would include somebody who reposts with their original thought. I would consider anybody who comments with thoughtful comments is a creator, because that is, you're creating something, you're putting something thoughtful and authentic, and your POV out into the world. That's creating, that's amplifying and creating. Of course, someone who has like a newsletter or a live stream or any type of creation you are doing out there in the world. If you're a speaker, if you moderate workshops, if you've been on a panel before, you are a creator, because again, down to the simplest term, you are creating something that is real and authentic and has your POV on it, and you're putting it out into the world. And then we talk about also influencers. So a lot of creators don't want to be involved in being influencers, but then what they have is what's called soft influence. So they don't necessarily go out there and say, hey, I'm this big influencer like Mr. Beast, or like, Charli D'Amelio, but they have influence. And so everyone has influence over someone. So in my opinion, we're all creators, we're all influencers. It's whether or not you just decide to monetize on reciprocity basis or on transactional basis for that. So we've got some comments here that I wanted to touch on from Matthew. And so, Mike, I hope that we answered your question. Before I go to the Matthew, I just really wanted to say that Angela said, that's a great point, Corinne Woodman-Holobeck. So, and this is when I made the point. Actually, I don't remember what the point I made. But she said it was.
You make so many.
I know. It's hard. But that's also a part of, I think, of being out there and being a creator, is being able to like laugh at yourself when sometimes when things don't go exactly the way that you want them to go, or that you have this kind of novel, jovial idea about, yeah, here I'm out in the world and I gotta, give myself grace for being out there and supporting myself. So yeah. Okay. So back to the comments with Matthew. Matthew, so thank you so much. So from my perspective, as one of the HR tech vendors who is always looking for partners, we'd much prefer a deeper relationship provided there is a fit. And then it says, to Marnie's point, we'd like to offer up as much as we can so that the creator consultant partner gets as much out of it as they can, so that they would also like to continue working with us for the longer term. Shorter term one-offs take too much time for not enough benefit on both sides. Yes. And this is why WorkStory is part of the Brand Partnerships Network. So thank you so much, Matthew, and thank you, WorkStory, for joining us. And then G said, agreed on your definitive creator, Corrine Woodman Hollebeck, amplifying and creating for the wind. Love that. And so important why we attach our names. Why we attach our names is why it's important. Agreed. Yep. And then Mike agreed. Yes, I think the emojis are. See, even that's creating to me. And then Angela adds, this is from Angela and Briggs page. If anybody wants to follow Angela, anyway, and again, it's all networking too. So if you see someone in the audience that is joining in and adding their creative point of view to this conversation, feel free to jump to click on their LinkedIn profile and add them as a co-creator or a co-networker within this ecosystem. So this is from Angela Briggs page, and it was about not having to purchase. It was about not having to have purchased the HR technology to provide insight on the technology. Oh yes, okay.
Good point. Yeah,
that was it. I appreciate that, Angela. See, and you rely on your network too. I think that's one of the things also that is missing in the current campaigns and current partnerships that are out right now in our industry, is this relying on your community and relying on your network, or doing it within a co-creator campaign or a multi-creator campaign. So you rely on each other. We rely on each other, rely on this ecosystem.
Sorry.
Is that the islands in the stream?
Yeah. Sorry.
Okay, now earworm today. To that point, G says, you two are fun. I'm loving this discussion today.
Thanks, G.
And when I grow up, I want to have fun. When I decide what I want to do in my growing up career, I want to have fun. So one of my philosophies. That was a great run. Okay, everybody. So back to our questions, and we already discussed a little bit about this, but what does a good brand partnership actually look like?
Yeah. To Matt's point, Matt has a couple really good examples of very strong partnerships. So he's someone that we definitely have provided feedback from and try to emulate in our future programming. But multi-touch, right? One that's not just that, somehow go back to speed dating, dating with marriage results. It's like not just that one and done. It's like there's a multi-touch, whether it's, that involvement is feedback, reciprocity, a webinar, LinkedIn Live series, things like that, that you get more of that flywheel effect from that partnership. Then you have value to all three sides. And by all three sides, again, all it's the vendor, the creator, and the buyer, right? This partnership has to have value for all three involved. And I think that's where the best partnerships come to play. So then we also have, we've talked a lot about it, reciprocity, transparency, I guess, is the biggest thing, and reciprocity and even compensation when that comes into the mix. So Corrine, you had mentioned about the network and being there for each other and whatnot. One of the things that we've really seen from people who have shown interest in the network is, golly, maybe I'm an aspiring creator. I'm not quite out there. I'm not one of the influencers or the big names. I didn't even know that I could have a rate card, right? But like, what is a rate card? That most of the people that we talk to, they're like, yeah, I guess I'm a creator, but I don't, what's a rate card? Or I'll just have the conversation or hope that the HR tech vendor will provide some sort of guidance or reciprocity statement. And so I think that there's power in that. So when a creator has knowledge of their value, promotes that value, and the HR tech vendors have that value in mind as well. Long-term relationships, again, making sure that those relationships aren't just the one and done, but they move on to more longer term. Creators are shaping the messaging, true advocacy. So a lot of times we see kind of these if you're an HR creator out there, you're probably getting a lot of emails on like, hey, we'll do a LinkedIn campaign. And for every LinkedIn post that you do for our brand, we'll pay you X amount of money. And that's fine. That's great. That has a moment. But when there's really true advocacy, you're not just renting advocacy from the HR creator side. That's when things get really good and juicy as far as like the content and the thought leadership. And then, just shared outcomes. Shared success and outcomes. Like, what do you really expect out of this? And getting really clear and concise about it. And I think we're getting a little better about that. So for instance, a couple examples is like, okay, do you want to do a LinkedIn Live series? Well, what is the goal of that LinkedIn Live series? Are you wanting more, MQLs to SQLs? What does that look like? How can I support with that? Is it more reach? I mean, that's called a spade a spade. If you want more reach, that's fine. Or what is that messaging? Maybe your go-to-market is shifting or something along those lines from the tech vendor side. Well, how does the partner play into that so that you have those shared outcomes and goals? We've had partners, HR tech vendors who have said, hey, I'm going to this conference. Will you join me at this conference? Maybe you're already going to be there, or maybe, we'll pay for your travel out here. If you can come and provide that credibility and that resource and that more draw to get people into our booth. So that's really where we see a lot of good partnerships, is just that shared combined focus on outcomes.
Yeah. Could you mention those 3 points again? What all needs to be happy, or who all needs to be happy?
Ooh, okay. So who all needs to be happy? Number one, the buyer. They're at the center of everything. So the buyer is the number one touch point in the end that needs to be happy. But then there's the creator, and then the vendor. So all three of those, it's like the three-legged stool. All three have to be happy, be getting value out of that partnership in order for it to be successful.
Awesome. Thank you. And so audience, one thing I would 100% take away from this conversation we're having here is rate cards. So it doesn't have to be a big, I'm often asked like, what's your rate card? And I'm like, well, what are we talking about? But I would take some time today, this week, next week, and sit down and say, what is my rate card? And it doesn't have to be monetary. So a rate card can include reciprocity as well. So what is it actually I want to accomplish? And put your rate card together. And then next time somebody who reaches out, like, I was listening to a podcast today, and they said, I think there is 11 new AI businesses being created each week globally. And they're looking for people to support them. And so I was like, wow, 11. I mean, can you imagine getting like they're using their sales navigator and they're typing in keywords, and they're coming up and they're sending you an email message, and they're saying, hey, would you become part of our ambassador program? We have this great new thing, or could I steal, or not steal, but could I pick your brain for 15 minutes? And you could reply back like, hey, this sounds interesting. This is not what I want for picking my brain for 15 minutes, or this is not what I want for being an ambassador. Would you like my rate card? Simple as that. And we're also talking here about like vendors reaching out to you. There's nothing to say that you can't reach out to a vendor and say like, hey, this is what I'm looking for. I really like your brand. Can we build a partnership off of this? Or can you direct me to someone who would build a partnership within your organization? One comment here from Matthew. Curious what people leaders are looking for most out of their partnerships. obviously different for different people, but is it money, which is fine? Is it joint exposure? Is it authority building? Is it knowing that on the front end and keeping those goals transparent makes it such an easier conversation to have? Yes, agreed. Agreed.
Yeah. Matt, I feel your pain, even on the HR, like on the HR tech vendor side. A lot of times it's when you're approaching HR creators, is it like, I don't know what's important to them. And I think that comes back to the rate card discussion. Karina and I have been having a lot of conversations with our founding creators, like one-on-one conversations. And we talk about what are your goals as a creator, what are you wanting to get out of it? And those goals need to go into the rate card. So for instance, is it speaking engagements, or maybe you want to get more international? Some people say, I don't want compensation. Maybe I can't even have compensation based on, who my employer is or whom I'm associated with. But my goal is to actually give back, work with underserved populations. And so they are listing that on their rate card. And so for the HR tech vendors, what we're really hoping to get, particularly with the network for you, is that clarity on that side as well, because it's really all over the board. But I will say we see a lot of HR leaders and creators that have been doing it a while that are in that transition moment of I feel like I do want to monetize it, but I'm not quite sure how to do it. And I think, in all honesty, HR tech vendors probably need to start thinking about that from a strategy standpoint as well.
Yeah. We've actually had interesting, like Marnie has mentioned a few different reciprocity contract deals that we've been working. One of the founders, founding creators, said that they wanted help with their TEDx talk.
Yep.
So that's simple. Not everybody want help with my TEDx talk on their rate card, but it's a possibility. I wouldn't go far as I think I was on a Safety Wing webinar yesterday or the day before, and someone said asking about a bed for their cat for their office. No, I wouldn't. That's maybe something outside the context of what we're talking about. Although fun outside the context.
Absolutely. And Monica, you absolutely should have a rate card. I'll talk to you about that.
Okay, so we just talked a little bit, we're getting ahead of ourselves here, but I wanted to touch on this right before we're ending the stream. If someone wants to monetize their expertise in tech partnerships without torching their credibility, how would they do that?
So it's tough, right? How do you put yourself out there and say, oh, but at a certain cost? So I think first off, it's okay to say no publicly and often. So what I mean by that is at its core, understand your value proposition and what your stance and your narrative is. And then it's easier to say if something fits within that narrative and within that personal brand, I can absolutely charge for that because that's the story. I'm a subject matter expert in that area. And so if you do say no to a brand partnership, or you do say this is something I don't, as an HR practitioner, get involved with, it's okay to say that publicly and often, because as you build that muscle, that kind of no muscle, then it gets easier to build the yes and muscle, so to speak. So don't get involved with brands that you wouldn't recommend for free. Even if it's paid, it can be seductive to get involved with a paid partnership. But if you want to do it for free, then don't do it. If you have to actually tell someone why a partnership's not sketchy, then it's probably a little sketchy and you don't want to get involved. Separate education from promotion. So one of the things when an HR tech vendor approaches, it's really good to be clear on, is this education or promotion, and making sure that you separate that. It's okay to promote a little bit at the end of a webinar and whatnot. But if you do that, if you do the promotion first, it's probably not going to work out well for your credibility. So make sure that you're focusing on, we've already talked about it, long game, deeper relationships with the partners. You can do the one-off things like pay to post type situations, and those are fine, but you're really going to be able to monetize more deeply. Maybe it's equity, maybe it's more in-depth conversations with these brands if you have more of those long-term, more intentional relationships. And so just be wary of the affiliate emails that come across your desk, and then partner with the network. I think that's one of the things, and that's what I'm like. Okay, so I'm promoting a little bit here, so don't judge me on this, but like with the Progressive HR Brand Partnerships Network, that was one of the things. It's like kind of that power in numbers, like the safety of numbers is how do we advocate for our own industry on behalf of both the like really top-notch vendors and the creators. How do we make sure that it feels better and less ick? And so I do highly promote, like, get involved with the network if you have questions and whatnot. I mean, we have a Substack. Follow the Substack. It's got, like, you don't even have to get involved, but it's a good resource and knowledge base, and we're getting it off the ground, but it's going to be a good resource for HR creators out there.
Yeah, you make a point there, Marnie. What I was going to say is that I was originally going to put up a QR code for our Substack newsletter, but I did forget that in the whole internet issue that we were having here. So if anybody has not already signed up to our Substack newsletter, it is free. But I mean, if you would like to, you can donate something to the network and get a paid version, but everything is free. Go ahead and add yes to the comments, and I will DM you a link to the Substack, since I completely not forgot, but I just didn't get that around to putting up the code. So we've got about 5 more minutes left in our conversation, but yet there's just so much more to say here. But we'll try to cap it down on 5 minutes. Yeah, and the same thing, if anybody has any questions, now's the time to ask. If we don't get to those questions, then we'll DM you later as well. So what's next? What's coming?
Oh,
I'm just reading. Okay. What's coming next to the Brand Partnerships Network? We got a few announcements coming.
Okay. Yeah, no, we so again, follow the Substack. We have a lot of great additions coming forward. We have more vendors coming on board. So we intentionally stayed small with our initial vendors, and we hope to do that because having really good, strong potential HR vendors is a great thing. But then we also have we have a wave 2 of our founding creators coming out, so you'll see an announcement of that. We have more names that are getting associated with the network, but more importantly, what is happening is as we've launched and we have more vendors, more names, more aspiring creators, it's this ecosystem is congealing and coming together. And so we're going to have programming on just what we talked about, rate cards. So for anyone who wants to join, we're going to have information about how to put together a rate card, who's doing what. We're going to be putting out for a few select creators, like communication channels, so that they can communicate together, and notifications. So we're really just, building out this whole ecosystem and just throwing out more and more programming as we get more feedback. We're going to be aggregating data, and being able, particularly you HR tech vendors who want to know who's doing what and everything, we're going to aggregate some of this data and get that out to you. So all really cool stuff.
Thanks, Marnie. So for those that follow Progressive HR Live, our next go live is in February 24th. We're going live with Jessica Bagley. Jessica's a founding creator with the Progressive HR Brand Partnership Network, and she's also the co-founder and COO of FieldMind, a new AI for the trades. So Jessica, FieldMind specifically, they just GTM in New York City. And they are for AI specifically for HVAC in New York City, but then they are expanding. So it's not just workers at desks that get AI. It's also the field and the trades and the field workers that this is coming to. So if you know of anybody who is a people leader or a talent development leader or even a IT and technology leader in the field services or frontline services, this would be a live for them to join to learn all about FieldMine and the innovations that FieldMine is dropping for everyone. So go ahead, and if you want to add FieldMine to the comments, I will send you the invite to that live when the invite page is ready. So we've got just a few more minutes before we say goodbye. I'm going to drop one more little note here. Jeed said, and I don't know where this is in my comment, but that I'm getting so much sketchy stuff. I've been generally turned off from even learning more about the process of brand partnerships. Really appreciate the two of you shedding light today. This brought up something about if you do get an in-mail, because some in-mails are great and some are not. I would say 50-50. If you do get my trick is if you get an in-mail that is asking you to pick your brain or have 20 minutes to talk about a potential opportunity, that you send them a Calendly link that's tied to a PayPal with a very nominal amount that you would consider your pre-consulting rate. And you basically say that this is my pre-consulting rate, and I'm happy to share with you when we have a partnership going that amount is returned to you. So in that way, you're gauging how important is this really to them. And I used this last week and I got back, oh no, I'm not ready yet to pay. So I was like, yeah, it's okay, cool. Let me know when you are. Yeah. So, okay, cool. A few last minute comments here. Monica says, yes, thanks today. G says, thanks for ladies today. I can't speak too. Thanks for today, ladies. I'm feeling a bit more energized about this, just listening and learning. Thank you so much, G. Any last minute comments, Marnie?
No, just don't hesitate to reach out. If you have questions. This has been a bit of a passion project over the past few months. So always happy to geek out a bit.
So, passion project for what, year and a half, actually, because that's when the idea was conceived.
This is true.
And then Matt says, great point, Corinne. I know, there's 3 great points today. So I'm patting myself on the back. Just kidding. Do this thing. No, when you.
There.
Oh, yeah. All right, everyone. Thank you so much for joining the live today. Greatly appreciate you. Marnie, appreciate you so much being on this journey with me. And thank you, everybody, for tuning in today. And we'll see you in February.
Bye.
Bye.